back to the Behavioral Gabaret. I'm Carrie Woodward, a behavior analyst and a early intervention specialist.
I'm Javen Encarnacion, a behavior analyst, educator, and consultant.
Okay, so jumping into chapter 28 in Science and Human Behavior is all about designing a culture. It's Skinner's boldest move yet. He basically says if every culture is already an experiment in behavior, why not run with it and do it with better data?
Yes, and he argues that an engineer uh, could create a culture intentionally, the same way we design bridges or vaccines. The trick is designing better without turning into Orwell.
We'll unpack how Skinner tackles value judgments and why he replaces, quote, good and evil with survival value, and what that means for ethics, policy, and I don't know, TikTok trends.
So apparently, the ultimate dependent variable isn't happiness; it's whether the culture still exists in 100 years.
That's right. Okay. So Skinner argues that most of what we call quote unquote culture, it wasn't designed. It just happened through accidents, habits, and power dynamics that stuck. So if that's true, what does it mean for the idea of progress? Like, are we evolving culturally, or are we just reinforcing whatever contingencies happen to work right now?
That's a good question. What do you think?
Okay, so the cultures are designed based on what's working and survival of the group, right? And so essentially, like when we think about natural selection in the Darwinian sense, there's no grand design. It's like
Mhm.
whatever works best for survival is what gets passed along. And I feel like the same can be said in how our cultures exist now. But Skinner's argument is saying, but what if we could design? Like,
Mhm.
what if we could manufacture a culture that worked the best for most people? And I feel like, given all of what we know about behavioral science and how we can strengthen certain repertoires of behavior, I feel like he's totally right. It's that how do we get that group to exist, and how do we manufacture the contingencies to set that group on the path toward ultimate survival and success. And I know that when we were talking about this chapter in class, we're talking about these like what are they, like experimental communities, right?
Mhm.
Like these communities that are built to like and all of the members of the community are it's sort of Orwellian, right? They all have like a similar mindset on how the community will work, how the people within the community are going to be policed by each other, what the expectations on performance within the culture is. Can that exist on a more global scale, or is it design? Is it relegated to just these small little pocket communities because it would be too difficult to actually control all the contingencies?
I think it's when I think about it, I think we don't have any data to or any examples of where it would be applied to a large community. So I feel like little small pocket communities. And what you're describing is something that's it's not there's like as little coercion as possible. So members are free to
Yes,
leave whenever they want. It's not like a cult, you know. And I think that
right.
might be what cults are probably shooting for at
Trying,
first,
yeah,
like
yeah, like
create their
Jonestown,
own
right?
way. But it's the just an idealistic community where everyone's working towards common goals and having shared values. What I think the challenge is that we don't all have the same values, and so some
Yeah.
people uh, are like seeing other people harmed. That's, they're looking for indicators of harm in someone else, and so when you'd have to have a way to address that and to have either proxies of reinforcement for it or something. And I think what ultimately I've come to think is that we just don't hold. There's no one in power who would be motivated to do that for any reason. Um, like to get people on a global stage to
Yeah.
agree to something like that is just wild.
When we think about different cultures in different countries, like I think pretty consistently Nordic countries get voted like the happiest citizens. I think that everybody could align with agreeing that we want to be happy, right? Like that could be a common shared objective and goal for every citizen of the country. And yet, when you look at the practices that they employ in their countries and in their culture that produce these effects of the happiest people, we have lots of people in our country that would say, like, well, that's just impossible. We couldn't do that, you
That
know?
sounds miserable to me.
It sounds
Not
miserable
me,
to you.
but
Oh, I was
no,
like, to be
like
happy?
someone would say that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so where, and I think that's where you almost need pocket communities because then you're talking about beliefs and values and people who,
Yeah.
like who are religious, these pocket communities that are voted the happiest or whatever, they have values that likely contradict so many values that are considered American. So the many people would be unhappy here. And so I feel like people would elect to not live in a community like that.
Ugh, I want to get one started.
Yeah, that wouldn't that be nice? He
Yeah.
also says that the only real scientific criterion for judging a culture is survival. So whether it produces conditions that sustain the group. Do you think that survival alone is enough? Like, what if a culture survives by keeping people miserable and controlled? Think about some of the cultures that we know about, or that we've been told about. How do we balance survival with meaning, freedom, or happiness?
I mean, cultures that we've been told about, cultures that we are currently experiencing and living through. Like there's been a shift even where we live. Um, and I, survival is an interesting word because to what extent, like how do we measure survival? There's evolution and change in our cultural history in the United States specifically. And it is a continuing evolution. I feel like there's more emigration from the US now than there has ever been in the history of the United States. And so is that a sign that that survival is on shaky ground because we have so many people trying to flee the country and go live in other countries? Or is there just going to be an evolution and a change to the current culture that, so like, we are here today and we are going to be here tomorrow. It's still surviving, but it's different. It's changed. It's adapted. Um, and for whom it adapts the most successfully, maybe they'll stick around. And for those of us that it doesn't adapt as well, maybe there is a continued leaving of the country. I don't know. How do you see that in terms of the way Skinner would talk about the survival of a culture?
Um, I think it's all reactionary. So survival, I think everyone, because all of us are responding to contingencies that are aversive for some and reinforcing for others.
Oh,
It just depends on who gets in power, how those people get in power, and then what types of policies or what the culture will shift depending on the power holders, I think. So
yeah,
when you think about, and what we know about people from, in China, uh, and North Korea, Russia, we what we know and what we've been told about them is that they're living in under an oppressed regime. That could not even be true, That I
right,
think like our government, every government's sole purpose is to continue governing and to continue functioning. And so they'll use all of the tactics that they need to propaganda. And America's not immune to it.
right.
So the the function of those the powers that be is to continue running the government and having it function. So I guess the meaning, freedom, and happiness isn't a priority. I think it's what we make of it
Ooh.
individually.
Well, and I think it also speaks to who those are in who are in control of what media is viewed have a
Hmm.
lot of power in shifting the narrative and helping to design the culture in a way that benefits them the most.
Yeah.
And I think we see that just in like the people who are the billionaires are the ones who own all of the tech companies or own the media corporations. And what benefits them the most is to have the lower class citizens upset with each other and not upset at them.
Yeah.
So, to continue to show media that in exacerbates the divide benefits them. And that's the culture that's being designed because they're the ones that are in control and empower.
And there's no way to stop it.
Right. Yeah, it feels very powerless.
Individually, it's
Right.
more of a group thing, and then a lot of those things would need to take off on social media, or
That's right.
in communities, and uh,
And not
when
be censored.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. So Skinner ends by saying that science won't give us perfect answers, just better guesses. Cultural design, then, is some sort of form of continuous experimentation. What would it look like if we actually treated society that way? Testing, revisiting policies, schools, or economics as ongoing behavioral experiments instead of moral crusades.
I That would be amazing. So I think that's where, when you think about COVID and how everyone got to experience the process of science in action, and the way that so many people responded, um, with a sense of disbelief and skepticism.
Uh-huh.
And I think that it was a perfect way to show how society isn't ready. I think that there isn't enough literacy in what science is, and what an experiment is, and how we can adapt. And I think it comes back to what we talked about previously, where belief versus fact and experiences just is a really hard struggle, because we saw an experiment in real time, and so much of the country was divided over it. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when science makes you question firmly held beliefs and or when science is inconvenient for those in power, then there's this effort to discredit science, and that's really what happened, right? Like I don't know that anybody who was truly trying to discredit the science was doing so with like uh innocent intentions. I feel like when it was inconvenient to follow the science because it was going to shut down the economy, because it was going to keep your kids out of school, when it was going to be businesses were closing and you were not going to make money, that's all very inconvenient. Now, I'm not arguing that that was the right move. I feel like there's like a constant risk benefit analysis on, the steps that were taken. But just the idea that science became so like it was the boogeyman because and now every piece of science is questioned. And like there's this whole group of people who are like, well, I just don't believe that. And it's like you don't get to not believe science. You get to believe in a lot of things, but science just is. It is just like what it is.
It's just a
And
process. It's not a belief.
right. And I
Just
feel like we're still stuck with that. And I don't know. I think as long as our education system is impacted, as long as it's better for people in power to have an uneducated electorate, then we're not going to get the kind of scientific literacy necessary en masse that would allow for us to really design a culture in a way that benefited everybody. It's
yeah.
just I am an optimist in so many regards, and this is not something that I feel very optimistic about.
Well, we're not optimistic, but we're certain, because
Right.
of the way the world works, and the way that people will react rather than respond and plan ahead. It doesn't look good.
No. So in that sense, we're stuck where we are with our culture. Just navigating the history and whatever works in survival, that's what's going to happen.
Yep. It is what it is.
So that was super positive and exciting. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's really beneficial to just understand.
Hmm.
And in the next one, we're going to finish up Skinner's very last chapter of the book with some problems. So maybe we'll find a positive spin in that one.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
It's the